I got my head shaved. Today we'll be talking about blur, how to use it artistically and how to completely avoid it using shutter speed. Shutter speed is part one of the trifecta of photography settings, and it's the easiest to comprehend. It has two main functions. It can let more light in or less light in, making the picture darker or brighter. But also as a bonus, it is the only setting that can either freeze time or blur a motion. It is the time stone of the photo world. What is a shutter? You don't have to know too much about the physicality of it. All that you need to know is that there's a curtain in front of the camera that is always closed. When you press the shutter button, it opens temporarily, exposing the camera sensor to the light coming through the lens. It then closes right after, blocking any further light from seeping in. How long that sensor is exposed is known as exposure time, but that sounds too much like radiation, so we'll just stick with shutter speed. Shutter speed is how long the sensor was exposed. It is essentially the length of time the sensor was exposed to the outside world. You'll see it denoted by numbers like 1/200, 1/4000, or even 1/2. These are all fractions of a second. If it's more than 1 second, you'll see it denoted by 1 quotation mark, 2 quotation mark. That just means 1 or 2 seconds. The easiest way to demonstrate is to listen to the sound. This is 1/50th. This is 1/10 of a second. This is 1/2 of a second. And this is 2 seconds. You can shoot up to 30 seconds with most DSLRs, which is great for night photography. Just make sure you use a tripod. You can shoot the stars, or even the Milky Way if you have the right equipment. Shutter speed can freeze time in place. It's great for sports, birds, apples, water droplets, and my two favorites, hair tosses and levitation photos. Moving objects will be the sharpest if you use a faster shutter speed. But faster shutter speed will mean less time for the sensor to receive light. Here's an example of what happens when we increase shutter speed without changing any other settings. The pics get increasingly darker as predicted. If we go outside on a bright day, however, it doesn't matter as much. We can go as fast as our cameras will allow and we'll still get decent results. When the shutter is open longer, we get a brighter picture, but we get motion blur. Any moving object will appear blurred. Here is that same picture again with a faster shutter speed. It's hard to guess exactly what the picture will look like. It's something unpredictable, but in the end, it's right if we know how to use it correctly for an artistic effect. We can make parts of the body blurry by moving them, and other parts sharp by staying completely still. This is useful if you want to show a sense of speed. To get a better sense of the effect, let's play with my balls. At 1/500th of a second, it's almost sharp. Half that and we can see some blur. At 1/60th, it looks like an egg. And at 1/20th, it doesn't even look round anymore. This is motion blur, not to be confused with camera shake. When the camera is shaky due to human error, the whole photo is blurry. But motion blur, unlike camera shake, has a large portion of the image still in focus. Only the moving object is blurred. This is because we're using a tripod and the camera itself does not move. In order to show a visual representation of motion, we need a static reference point to stay completely still and have our moving object move through that space. By having the majority of the photo stationary, the object's movement really stands out. Otherwise, it's just a blurry mess. So how do we avoid camera shake? Well, for one, we can use a tripod. To be on the safe side, an old guideline is the reciprocal rule. Photolingo terminology. Whatever lens you're using will determine your minimum safe shutter speed. So for a 50mm lens, you'll want to use at least 1/50. For an 85mm lens, you'll want to use at least 1/80. 200mm will be way more shaky because it's a lot more zoomed in. Shoot at least at 1/200th. How to change shutter speed. There are two main ways to adjust shutter speed, and we have to get out of auto mode. Either manual, if you are already familiar with the other two settings, or shutter priority. On Nikon cameras, it's S for shutter. And on Canon cameras, it's TV for time value. In this mode, you can fool around with just the shutter speed while the camera does the rest. So now that you know how to play with shutter speed, here's a personal challenge. Go out there, freeze a motion the human eye can't see. Throw things in the air, make them levitate, or shoot some birds in mid-flight. Then do the opposite and shoot something completely slow, intentionally showing motion blur. The easiest thing to do is to get a tripod, go outside by the street where the cars are going by, and catch those streaking lights as the cars drive by. Or if you're lucky enough to have a thunderstorm rolling in, this is how you get those lightning crashes photos. Just set the shutter speed to 30 seconds and point it towards some buildings. Hopefully you'll get lucky and you're pointing it the right way. If you want to follow along, I'd recommend playing with shutter speed for at least a week to get a sense of where your blur limits are. So anywho, to conclude, with shutter speed, we can freeze time by shooting really fast, or we can slow down time by shooting at a low shutter speed and blurring a motion. If you got your camera on you right now, here's a quick test you could do to differentiate between motion blur and camera shake. Set your shutter speed really low, say 1/4 of a second, spin in a circle, camera facing out to see camera shake. Everything should be blurry, but you'll see horizontal lines. Now, face the camera towards you, selfie style, and spin again. This time, you're in focus while everything else is moving. Just think of that Titanic spinning scene. Make sure to like and subscribe because we're going to cover all the major camera settings in this series, and you don't want to miss one. So go, get out there, go for a nature walk and go shoot some water. But please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. Don't go chasing cascading water near steep inclines. It's dangerous. Woo!